Okay, so like we all wonder about this stuff, right? Like where do we fit in? What's this whole thing even about?
Totally. I mean, it's kind of a fundamental human question, isn't it? And we try all these ways to figure it out, right? Through science, philosophy, religion.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like forever people have been grappling with these big existential questions.
Uh-huh. And they've come up with some pretty interesting perspectives along the way.
And today we're diving into one of the oldest and most influential of those traditions, Buddhism.
Oh, great choice.
Yeah, so we've got some fascinating sources here, which traces how Buddhism spread eastward. And then we have Hu-Yo, which lays out the core ideas. And finally, which looks at how those ideas are put into practice in daily life.
Fantastic. I think this ties in perfectly with what you, our listener, are interested in exploring, that desire to understand ourselves and the universe.
Exactly. And in this deep dive, we want to distill the essence of these sources for you.
Right, to give you a clear, engaging overview of what Buddhism is all about, the core concepts and practices, without getting lost in the weeds.
Think of it as your express lane to Buddhist fundamentals.
Perfect.
So we're going to start by looking at the Buddhist worldview, how it sees us, and the universe around us. Then we'll unpack some of the key Buddhist concepts.
Sounds good.
And finally, we'll explore how these ideas translate into actual lived experience. So the aim is to really make these ideas click for you, to have those aha moments.
That's what we're all about. So where should we start? What's I guess, the heart of Buddha's teachings when it comes to understanding ourselves in the world?
Well, a really central point seems to be that Buddhist teachings aim to dismantle certain illusions.
Illusions.
Yeah, illusions that we hold about ourselves and reality. Like the first one is this feeling of being a separate, permanent I. It's called I clinging.
Oh, I see. So like the sense of being a solid, independent self.
Exactly. And then there's this notion that the world around us is fixed and unchanging. That's referred to as dharma clinging.
Okay. So Buddhism is saying that both of these ideas, that we're separate selves and that reality is fixed, are illusions. Interesting.
Right. And the core of the Buddhist perspective lies in really understanding the true nature of our experience and the reality we live in.
Uh-huh. And this understanding is supposed to be the key to moving beyond confusion and ultimately to liberation from suffering.
Right. And there's this word that comes up constantly in the sources, dharma.
Dharma.
Yeah. We might hear it used in different contexts, but here it points to something very fundamental about how the universe works.
So not like religious rules or anything like that.
No, more like the underlying operating system of the universe, the inherent way things are.
Okay, so like the laws of nature.
Yeah. And as our source puts it, dharma, which means the dharma, is inherently so. The Buddha discovered this principle through his enlightenment. He didn't create it.
So he was more of a scientist uncovering a natural law than a lawmaker.
Yeah. Exactly. And this really connects back to those big questions we started with, questions about where did the universe come from? How long does it last? How vast is it? Is there some order to it all?
Yeah, and where do we fit into all this? Where do we come from? Where are we going? What's the meaning of it all? The big stuff.
Absolutely. These are questions that have captivated humanity for ages.
Uh-huh.
And Buddhism offers its own unique perspective on these mysteries. For instance, the Buddhist understanding of world O is vast, encompassing both immense space and endless time.
So it's not just talking about the physical world as we see it.
No, much bigger. The source explains it. That she refers to all of time, past, present, and future. And then that's G covers all of space. The 10 directions.
The 10 directions.
Yeah, think of it as encompassing all possible dimensions of space. Up, down, north, south, east, west, and all the points in between.
Okay, so it's like this all-encompassing view of time and space.
Exactly. And it's interesting to see how this echoes those ancient Chinese concepts of Shi and three, both of which also point to this boundless reality.
That's cool how different cultures have these similar ideas about the vastness of existence.
It really is. Now, to really grasp the Buddhist view, it's helpful to compare it to other ways of looking at the universe.
Oh yeah, like contrasting it with other philosophies.
Exactly. So, for example, you have materialism. Materialism says that everything is ultimately just matter, and that consciousness is simply a byproduct of matter.
Okay, so like consciousness is just a result of physical processes in the brain.
Yeah, and in this view, there's no independent soul or spirit that continues on after the body dies.
Makes sense. So what's another perspective?
Well, there's idealism, which takes a completely different approach. Idealism says that consciousness or spirit is actually the fundamental reality, and everything we experience arises from it.
So it's like the mind is the source of everything.
Right. Our thoughts are like manifestations of mind, and even physical objects could be seen as some form of mental energy or a projection of consciousness.
Wow, that's pretty different from materialism. Okay, so I've got materialism and idealism. What else?
We've also got mind-body dualism. That's the idea that the mind and body are completely separate entities, neither one reducible to the other.
Right, that one's pretty common. Like the mind is this non-physical thing and the body is this physical thing, and they're just totally different.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's pluralism. Pluralism says that the universe is made up of multiple fundamental elements, not just one.
So it's not all just matter and it's not all just mind, but it's a bunch of different fundamental things.
Right. And all these perspectives have some interesting points, but the source suggests that they don't quite capture the whole picture.
Oh, okay. So how does Buddhism address this?
Well, Buddhism offers a more comprehensive understanding of reality. And at the center of this understanding is this concept of the five aggregates, the Five Aggregates.
The five aggregates. That sounds interesting. What are they?
So think of the five aggregates as the building blocks of all our experience, both internal and external.
Okay, so they're kind of like the fundamental components of everything.
Yeah, exactly. And they are form arrow, feel exception, yeah, mental formations can, and consciousness can.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. Let's go through them one by one. What's form?
So form, or yeah, is basically the physical stuff. It's anything that has shape, occupies space, and is subject to change.
Okay, so kind of like what we think of as matter in science.
Similar, but not exactly the same. And within form, we have the four great elements, the Shaya. These are earth, water, fire, and wind.
Wait, earth, water, fire, and wind? Like the classical elements?
Yeah, but think of them more as representing the core qualities of physical reality. So earth is solidity, water is fluidity, fire is warmth or energy, and wind is movement.
So not literally like the elements on the periodic table, but more like the essential qualities that make up all physical things.
I see. Exactly. And the source makes an interesting distinction within form. It talks about things that are touchable and destructible, like mountains, trees, our bodies,
Yeah.
and then things that are manifested by direction, like shapes, colors, tastes, and even abstract concepts.
Wait, abstract concepts. How can an abstract concept have a form?
Well, in a way, even our concepts have a kind of form because they exist in the realm of mind, which is also part of reality. It's like they have a mental shape or structure.
That's pretty deep. Okay, so that's form. What about feeling?
So feeling, or time, is our emotional response to our experiences, whether we feel pleasure, pain, or something neutral.
Right, so it's like the basic emotional tones we experience in life. Happy, sad, neutral.
Yep, pretty straightforward. Then there's perception.
Perception.
This is how we grasp the characteristics of objects, how we form mental images and ideas about the things we encounter.
So like how I recognize a tree as a tree.
Exactly. The source compares it to mental imagery.
Makes sense. Okay, what about mental formations?
So mental formations is a bit more complex. This includes our intentions, our volitions, the mental processes that drive our actions, both physically and verbally.
So it's like the will or the motivation behind our actions.
Right. It's the mental energy that propels us to do things.
And last but not least, we have consciousness, people.
Yes, and consciousness is the ability to be aware of things, to distinguish and recognize objects. Like eye consciousness allows us to see colors, and ear consciousness allows us to hear sounds.
Okay, so it's the knowing faculty, the awareness aspect of our experience.
Exactly. So these five aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. They're the basic ingredients of everything we experience.
And together, the universe and all life are called her in Buddhism.
That's right. It's the totality of existence.
Wow, it's like this intricate tapestry woven from these five threads.
A really good analogy. And within this world, there's this distinction between sentient beings.
Sentient beings.
Yeah, that's us, humans, and all other beings that possess consciousness.
Okay, so any being that can experience things, feel emotions, think thoughts.
Exactly. And this is seen as the primary result of karma.
We'll get to karma in a bit. And what about the other part of kur?
Right. The other part is the physical world, the fear. This is the environment where we, as sentient beings, live.
Okay, so the mountains, rivers, trees, planets, stars, all the physical stuff.
Exactly. And this physical world is considered a secondary result, a dependent result of karma.
Interesting. So both the beings and the environment are shaped by karma in a way.
Right. Now, there's this really interesting discussion in the source about how consciousness relates to the other four aggregates.
Oh, that's a good question. It seems like they're all intertwined somehow.
Yeah, they really are. The source explains that consciousness is the subjective experience of knowing, while the other four are the objects being known.
Okay, so consciousness is like the knower, and the other aggregates are what is known.
Precisely. And there's this key phrase,
Hmm.
three-wittis, which translates to consciousness conditions, name and form. Name and form condition consciousness.
So they're not separate, independent things.
Not at all. They're completely interdependent. They rely on each other for their existence. It's like this cycle of mutual dependence.
I see. Like, we need consciousness to be aware of form, feelings, perceptions, and thoughts. But we also need those things as objects for our consciousness to engage with.
Yeah, the source uses this analogy of two sticks leaning against each other. If you remove one, the other falls.
That makes sense. They support each other.
Right. And this idea of interdependence is a core concept in Buddhism. It's called dependent arising.
Dependent arising. That sounds important.
It is. Literally means when this exists, that exists. When this arises, that arises. Our source tells this really powerful story about two brilliant seekers, Shariputra and Moggallana. They were so moved when they heard this teaching about dependent arising.
What was so powerful about this teaching?
Well, the source explains that they immediately grasped that the universe isn't random, is not governed by chance or even a creator god,
Okay.
but by this intricate web of interconnected causes and conditions.
So everything arises from something else.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
nothing exists in isolation.
Wow. I can see why that would be a profound realization. So how does this dependent arising actually work? What are the causes and conditions here?
So E, that's yin, refers to the primary cause, and then kin, that's yin, refers to the supporting conditions.
Okay, so like if you're baking a cake, the tea would be the main ingredients, the flour, eggs, sugar.
Exactly. And the team would be all the other things you need. The oven, the baking pan, the right temperature.
Oh, I see. Like the recipe and the tools. Without those supporting conditions, you couldn't bake the cake, even if you had all the right ingredients.
Perfect analogy. And to further explain this idea of interdependence, there's this saying, yin we. Yin yang. Wow, that's a mouthful. What does that mean? It means when this exists, that exists. When this arises, that arises. When this does not exist, that does not exist. When this ceases, that ceases.
Okay, so it's basically emphasizing that everything is connected.
Yeah. Things exist and arise in relation to other things, both in the present moment, like horizontally or spatially, and across time, vertically or temporally. It's all interconnected.
It's like this incredible cosmic web with everything linked together.
Exactly. And if you remember those five aggregates we discussed earlier, they're seen as the fundamental causes and conditions for everything.
Right. So everything we experience, both internally and externally, arises because of these aggregates and the conditions around them.
Exactly. And this understanding of dependent arising naturally leads to another core Buddhist concept, the law of universal causation. The law.
Of universal causation. Okay, break that down for me.
So if everything happens because of causes and conditions, there must be some underlying principle that governs how those causes lead to their effects, right?
That makes sense.
And that's what this law explains. The source emphasizes that the universe doesn't just change randomly or because some divine being is controlling it.
Okay.
Instead, it changes according to the coming together of various conditions, the Ibom we talked about earlier.
Right. So it's not about chance or fate, but about the interplay of these different causes and conditions.
Exactly. And to look at it from different angles, the source talks about ain, that's dependent, arising from the perspective of the cause.
Uh-huh.
And then ain, which means arising from conditions, which is looking at it from the perspective of the effect.
Okay. So it's the same principle, just viewed from different sides.
Yeah. And ultimately, everything that exists is called ain, meaning phenomena that arise from causes and conditions.
So nothing just pops into existence out of nowhere.
Nope. Everything has a cause, and those causes are always rooted in conditions. And because conditions are constantly changing,
Everything is impermanent.
you got it. Nothing stays fixed forever, both in the physical world and in the lives of beings.
So like the cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death for living beings.
Yeah, and the cycles of formation, existence, decay, and emptiness for the physical universe. It's all about constant change.
Wow, that's a lot to take in. And where does karma fit into all this?
Karma plays a crucial role in this whole framework of universal causation.
Okay, so we've all heard the word karma thrown around, but what does it actually mean in Buddhism?
Here, karma, or toy, is defined as volitional actions of body, speech, and mind.
So not just actions, but also our words and even our thoughts.
Right? It's all about intention. And karma acts as the main cause the ye see in shaping our mental and volitional experiences.
Okay, so like the choices we make, the things we say and do, and even the thoughts we dwell on, they all create karmic seeds that will eventually ripen into certain experiences.
Exactly. And to add a little more detail, the source mentions these four conditions.
Four conditions.
Think of it like this. If we're planting a seed, right, the seed is like the primary cause our karma. But for that seed to grow, you need other conditions too.
Right, like soil, water, sunlight.
Exactly. So the first condition is the causal condition. That's the seed, our karma.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the immediately preceding condition, which is the mental state right before an action.
So, like, if I'm feeling angry and I lash out verbally, the anger would be part of the immediately preceding condition.
Exactly. And then there's the object condition.
Object condition.
That's like what the mind is focused on.
Oh, okay.
And lastly, there's the dominant condition, which is all the other mental and physical phenomena that influence how that karmic seed grows.
So it's like the overall environment that influences how our karma unfolds.
Exactly. Like the people we surround ourselves with, the society we live in, all these things play a role.
Wow, it's really complex.
It is.
Yeah.
Now, the source also lays out three core principles of this law of causation. The first one is that effects always arise from causes. If there's no cause, there's no effect. And if the causes and conditions are there, the effect is inevitable.
Okay, so no cause, no effect. Simple enough. What's the second principle?
The second principle is that events happen according to a principle. Basically, there are natural laws that govern cause and effect.
So it's not just random. There's an order to things.
Right, like the fact that birth inevitably leads to death, that's a natural law.
Okay, makes sense. And what's the third principle?
The third principle is that existence relies on emptiness.
Emptiness. That's a tricky one.
Yeah, it's a bit mind-bending. It's basically saying that everything that exists initially didn't exist.
Huh.
Being arises from non-being, and it means that nothing has a fixed, independent core.
So things only exist in relation to other things.
Exactly. The source gives this analogy of a reflection in a mirror. The reflection appears, but it doesn't have any inherent substance on its own.
Ah, I see. Like it depends on the mirror and the object being reflected to exist.
Exactly. Okay, and the source also points out that there's no first cause or final effect.
Oh, interesting. So it's not like there's some beginning point or some ultimate end point to the chain of cause and effect.
Nope. It's this endless chain of causes leading to effects, which then become causes for other effects and so on.
So it's like a circle, or maybe more like a spiral.
Yeah, more like an infinite web of interconnectedness.
Mind-boggling. Okay, anything else about this law of causation?
Oh yeah, another important point is that cause and effect are relative, not absolute.
Relative, what does that mean?
It means that something can be both a cause and an effect,
Oh.
depending on how you look at it. Like cotton yarn is the cause of fabric, but it's also the effect of cotton.
Oh, right. That makes sense. So it's all about perspective.
Yeah. And the source really emphasizes that this whole chain of causation spans across time. Past actions create seeds that can ripen in the future when the right conditions come together.
So our actions have consequences that can stretch far beyond the present moment.
Absolutely. And fundamentally, cause and effect are linked. Good actions tend to lead to positive outcomes, and harmful actions tend to lead to negative outcomes. The source even quotes this powerful verse. Chirapulzai.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means, though 1,000 myriad kalpas pass, the karma one creates does not vanish. When conditions meet, one experiences its fruit.
Wow, so our actions really do have long-lasting consequences.
They do. The source even gives examples of cause and effect in different realms, like the physical realm, the mental realm, and the interaction between mind and matter.
Like what?
Well, it mentions this story of Li Guang, a famous general, who shot a stone thinking it was a tiger.
Wait, he shot a stone.
Yeah, but he was so convinced it was a tiger, he used all his strength, and his arrow actually embedded itself in the stone.
Oh, wow. So that's like an example of how our mental state can actually influence physical reality.
Exactly. And the point is that our thoughts and intentions are like seeds. They shape our future experiences.
So what you think and what you intend really matters.
It does. And this even extends to future lives, according to Buddhism.
Okay, so we've covered a lot about the Buddhist worldview. If you had to summarize it, what would you say are the key takeaways?
Well, it's a worldview that emphasizes interconnectedness and dependent arising. It's non-dualistic. It doesn't see mind and matter as separate. It all begins with how we perceive reality. The phrase "ich and yo" really gets at this idea of mutual dependence between consciousness and everything we experience. And importantly, it's not a mechanistic universe like a clockwork machine, nor is it driven by some predetermined purpose or a grand plan. It's more like a constantly evolving tapestry of interdependent causes and effects.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And the source also touches on the Buddhist view of the cosmos, this incredible concept of the 3,000 great thousand worlds, the Cheku.
Yeah, this is where things get really expansive. It talks about different realms of existence, like the six realms, the sixth
Okay.
realm. Yeah. You have the realms of suffering, the hell realms, the hungry ghost realms, the animal realms, and then you have the human realm, the Ashura realm. Those are like the demigods, driven by jealousy and rivalry.
Oh, wow.
And then the heavenly realm, like the realms of the gods. And all of this exists within the three realms,
Three realms.
the desire realm, the form realm, and the formless realm.
Okay, so those are like different levels of existence.
Right. The desire realm is where beings are driven by their desires and attachments.
Makes sense. What about the form realm?
The form realm is more subtle. Beings in the form realm have form, but they're less attached to their desires.
Okay, so less driven by cravings. And the formless realm.
That's the most subtle realm. Beings that exist purely in the realm of mind with no physical form.
There's like pure consciousness.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And all these different realms are part of this incredible structure called the 3,000 Great Thousand Worlds.
3,000 great thousand worlds. That's a mouthful.
It is. The source breaks it down. It starts with a single world system centered around Mount Sumru, a mythical mountain. 1,000 of those form a small chiliocosm. Then 1,000 small chiliocosms make up a medium chiliocosm, and 1,000 medium chiliocosms make up a great chiliocosm.
So it's like this exponential expansion of worlds within worlds.
Exactly. And the idea is that there are countless such world systems throughout the cosmos.
So it's a truly vast and multidimensional universe.
It really is. And the source even draws a parallel to modern astronomy, how scientists have discovered countless galaxies.
That's amazing.
And it's not just about space, it's about time too.
Mm.
These world systems are constantly going through cycles of formation, abiding, decay, and emptiness.
Oh yeah, the four kalpas, right.
Right, and a kalpa is an incredibly long period of time, almost unimaginable to us. And within each kalpa, there are these smaller cycles based on things like changes in human lifespan.
So it's like these endless cycles within cycles, a constant process of arising and passing away.
Exactly. So, to sum up our exploration of the Buddhist worldview, we see a universe of unimaginable scale, with endless cycles of time and countless beings, all operating according to the fundamental principles of dependent arising and the law of universal causation.
Wow. That's a lot to ponder.
It is. So in this first part of our deep dive, we've really focused on how Buddhism views the universe and our place in it. This idea of interconnectedness through dependent arising, the power of our actions through cause and effect, and this vast cyclical nature of the cosmos as described in the Buddhist teachings.
Right. And this understanding of the world lays the foundation for the Buddhist path, the practical aspects of how to live in alignment with this worldview.
Exactly. And all of this brings up a really interesting question for you to consider. How does understanding dependent arising, this idea that everything is interconnected and arises due to causes and conditions, change the way you think about your own actions and their impact on the world?
Right. Both in the short term and in the long term, it's a real shift in perspective.
It really is. We encourage you to reflect on this and explore it further. And of course, let us know if there are other areas of knowledge you'd like us to deep dive into in the future.